Felicitous greetings, fellow Fanatics.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Fanatic, and today we're taking a look at the Transformers deck building game, a variable format deck building game by Renegade Game Studios. In this title, 1 to 5 players can play either cooperatively or competitively, exploring a matrix of cards to improve their decks. In solo or cooperative play, you'll be working together in order to try and defeat 3 boss cards before time runs out. In the competitive mode, you're simply trying to have more victory points than all other players. To set up, you'll first take the main deck. Keep in mind that cooperative schemes are not used in the competitive mode, and relics are not used in the cooperative mode. For all intents and purposes, playing solo is the same as the cooperative game. After shuffling, deal out cards according to the number of players to form the matrix. For a 2-player game, you'll form a 3x4 grid, but for more players, you'll use a larger play area. After that, you'll deal cards into 3 stacks, which will again vary in size depending on the number of players. For a 2-player game, each stack will have 9 cards. You'll then make a 4th stack of 5 cards regardless of the number of players. The rest of the main deck cards will not be used this time around. After that, you'll take the boss cards. Without looking at them, you'll place a level 1 boss into the first stack, a level 2 boss into the second stack, and a level 3 boss into the third stack. If playing cooperatively, you'll also place a random cooperative scheme into each of the first 3 stacks. Shuffle each stack individually and then set them so the 5 card stack is on the bottom, the level 3 stack is on top of that, then the level 2 stack, and finally put the level 1 stack on top of all the others to form a single deck. Do not shuffle this new deck. You'll also set the damage and transform rollout cards where they're within easy reach and shuffle up the encounter deck as well. Each player will choose a character card to play as. Place it so that the alt mode is face up and take the matching standee. You also need to take 2 small energon cubes and 3 tokens to show -1 movement on one side and +1 power on the reverse. Finally, you'll take 10 cards to form your starter deck. 1 firepower, 1 fix, 1 patrol, 1 reserves, and 6 copies of courage. Each player shuffles these together and draws 5 cards. Then you're ready to begin. On your first turn, you'll begin by teleporting in, which allows you to place your standee on any space, placing them on whichever card in the matrix you choose. From this point forward, you'll need to spend movement in order to get around the matrix. When your character is in alt mode, they'll have some innate movement points indicated by the arrow symbol on their card. You can place a minus movement token to show when you've used a point of movement. It costs 1 point to move to a space that's orthogonally adjacent. Moving on to a face down card doesn't flip it face up. Rather, this is another use of movement points. When on a face down card, you can spend 1 movement point to flip it face up. In addition to your character card, you can also gain movement points from the cards you play, represented by the same arrow symbol. Depending on what comes up, you'll be able to interact with cards in different ways. In addition to movement, there are 2 other common symbols on cards you'll need to be familiar with. A card with a targeting reticule can be used at range, allowing you to purchase or defeat cards from a distance. If a card doesn't have this symbol, you can only use it to affect the space you're currently on. You'll also find this battery symbol that represents power. Power is used to purchase cards or defeat enemies. In order to purchase a card, simply pay power equal to the cost in the top left corner. You can purchase technology, maneuvers, allies, relics, and any robots that are not adversaries. Since this set only includes Autobot characters, you'll consider Decepticons to be adversaries, and thus cannot purchase them. We'll get to confronting adversaries in a little bit. For most cards, you'll place them in your discard pile once you purchase them. Allies are an exception though, and immediately go into play, where their ongoing effects can help you out on your next turn. You can also purchase transform rollout cards for 2 power each, regardless of where you are on the matrix. In addition to the cards you can purchase, you'll also find sights. These cards remain in play after being revealed and tend to have effects that any player can use while on that space. Sometimes you'll draw schemes. These have nasty effects that will make the game more difficult for all players. Decepticon schemes will give you rewards for stopping them, but cooperative schemes are there purely to make the game more challenging when players are working together. Before we move on to combat, there's a couple other things that you should note. Firstly, anytime you are not in battle, you may spend 1 energon to transform. This flips your card over and gives you a different set of abilities. Keep in mind that all characters have a movement bonus in alt form, but also have a combat penalty which they don't suffer in bot form. Some cards may also allow you to transform for free, such as the aforementioned transform and roll out card. The other thing to note is that many cards will have secondary abilities on the bottom of the card. These cost energon to activate them, represented by the number inside the cube. Keep in mind that each Energon ability can only be activated once each time you play the card, no matter how much Energon you have stored. However, if you play multiple copies of the same card, you may activate each of them once. And finally, you have Adversary encounters. These come in both standard and boss varieties. For standard enemies, if you're in their space when they first appear, or if you move into their space, you'll suffer an ambush. To resolve this, simply reveal the top card of the encounter deck and look at the top half of it for its ambush effect. Ambushes are generally attacks. Anytime an attack would affect you, you may discard a card from your hand that says block to avoid the attack. Most blocks also have additional benefits, but if a card is used for its block, you do not gain any of the other effects of the card, only what is mentioned in its block text. A common effect of attacks is to take damage cards. These don't go into your discard pile, but rather are simply placed beside your deck. When playing cooperatively, if any one player has 5 damage cards, all players lose instantly. If playing competitively, you'll lose 1 victory point for every 2 damage cards you have at the end of the game, rounded down. Luckily, there are ways to rid yourself and your teammates of damage cards, such as the aforementioned fixed card that you start the game with. After the ambush is resolved, or avoided by a block, you can fight against the adversary. Against normal enemies, you simply play cards from your hand until you have enough power to defeat them. After that, you'll remove them from the game and gain the rewards listed on the bottom of the card. If any players assisted you, they'll also gain those same rewards. In a cooperative game, players may assist you so long as you are within range. If playing competitively, they may only assist you if you're damaged. To do so, they'll place 1 card that can add power to the battle face down. You'll then choose assist cards from those played one at a time until you resolve a number equal to the number of damage cards you currently control, or until they've all been resolved. After that, you'll add your own cards to finish off the foe if necessary. Each player that resolved an assist will gain the same rewards from battle as you. You'll take the card itself into your vault, while those who assisted will take VP tokens if necessary. In a cooperative game, any victory point rewards are converted into Energon. After defeating a foe, you'll discard any cards you've played up to this point in your turn. If you have any cards left in your hand, you may continue to play them. However, boss fights go a little differently. Firstly, they will always have an effect that happens when they're first revealed, which affects every player in the game. If this is listed as an attack, it may be blocked like any other attack. Beyond that, they tend to have nasty effects which remain in play until they're defeated, so it's best to take them out as quickly as possible. With boss fights, players may assist you regardless of whether or not you're damaged. It's very likely you'll need to do such in order to overcome them. To begin a confrontation, you'll play whatever cards you think are necessary to win the fight. Keep in mind that you'll often want to save a card to block attacks, and many times will need more than the printed power in order to win the fight. After you've played your cards, other players have the option of assisting. After they decide whether or not to assist, reshuffle the encounter deck and draw the top card, resolving the bottom half of it. If it's an attack, it may be blocked as usual. Once the encounter card is resolved, if you have enough power to defeat the boss, you've won. Otherwise, reveal assist cards one at a time until you have enough power. If, after all assist cards have been played, you still do not have enough power, you may activate Energon abilities if any are applicable to the fight. If you still don't have enough power, the boss is not defeated and you'll have to try again another time. Regardless of whether or not you're successful, your turn ends immediately after a boss encounter. Once you are unable or unwilling to play any more cards, you come to the end of your turn. When this happens, you'll refill any spots on the matrix with face-down cards. If there are no empty spots on the matrix, you'll instead reveal the top card of the main deck. If it's anything other than a boss, it's immediately discarded and removed from the game. If it is a boss, you'll choose 1 card in the matrix to discard and replace with it. You can't get rid of an adversary or a scheme this way, but you can get rid of face-down cards. If you decide to discard a face-down card, reveal it immediately. If it's an adversary or a scheme, it goes face up and you must choose another card in its place. Otherwise, the card in question is discarded and replaced with the boss. After refilling the matrix, you check to see if the game is over. If all 3 bosses have been defeated, or if there weren't enough cards to refill the matrix, the game ends immediately. Otherwise, you'll discard all the cards in your hand and those that you've played and draw a new hand of 5 cards. If you ever need to draw cards for any reason and have none in your deck, you'll reshuffle your discard pile and use that to form a new deck in its place. In a competitive game, players will count up their victory points to determine the winner. In a cooperative game, it's predicated solely on whether or not the players manage to defeat all 3 bosses before the deck ran out. And that's the basic gist of how you play. It's been hinted that expansions are already in the works, and the game is clearly future-proof to interact with them. Although there are already cards that let you fight against Autobots or recruit Decepticons, these are currently the exception rather than the rule, whereas it has been stated that future expansions will allow you to play as the Decepticons. Component-wise, there's really not that much to talk about. Cards are decently thick, not particularly flimsy, but not notably sturdy either. Cardboard tokens are nice and thick, and there are enough plastic standees that each character can have their own, so you're not sliding them on and off of the cardboard pieces. The box also comes with an insert which does a decent job of helping to speed up with setup and takedown. The artwork in the game is quite impressive. The credits have a list of names as graphic novel illustrators, so I assume these are lifted from the comics. They're well detailed and serve the purpose quite nicely. However, if you're one of those that dislikes reused artwork, then do be wary. All in all, the game works quite well. I have heard complaints about the theme not working as well for the competitive mode. Why would the Autobots be worried about personal glory when they're fighting for their lives against the Decepticons? And they're certainly not wrong. For that reason, I do prefer it as a cooperative game. However, I will say that both the cooperative and competitive variants are quite solid mechanically. Those who are already familiar with deck builders will pick it up quite quickly, but the addition of the matrix to move around in does keep things from feeling stale. It's a relatively small alteration, but it does change things up quite nicely. It doesn't break any massively new territory, but it is a solid experience both for newcomers to deck builders and veterans alike. In conclusion, I find the Transformers deck building game to be worthy of a respectable 7.8 out of 10. If you're interested in purchasing the Transformers deck building game, I first suggest that you check it with your local game store and see if they stock it. If you're unable to find it or simply wish to learn more, links are included in the description. But what about you? What do you think of the Transformers deck building game? What deck builders do you enjoy? If you have any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view, leave them in the comments down below. And please remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. And if you really enjoy my work, please consider funding my channel on Patreon. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.